Consumer Reports just dropped a warning most buyers haven't seen yet, and if you're shopping for a new car right now, you need to hear this before you sign anything. Because according to the latest Consumer Reports survey trends, reliability scoring patterns, and owner complaint data, there are 9 car brands flashing danger signals. The kind of signals that don't just mean this car might be annoying. No, this is the kind of slow-motion collapse that destroys resale value, forces dealers into desperation discounts, and quietly pushes brands into the zone where survival becomes questionable. And here's the scary part. Most buyers won't notice any of this until after they buy, when trade-in values crater and the dealer network starts shrinking. This isn't rumor. This isn't Reddit panic. This is the kind of warning that comes from the same data lenders, insurers, and leasing companies watch like a hawk. And that's why Consumer Reports is such a red flag nobody ignores. Because QR doesn't just influence opinions, it influences money. It impacts buyer trust, it impacts whether banks feel comfortable approving loans on certain models, and it impacts lease residual values, which is basically the future value prediction that makes leasing possible in the first place. If a brand starts trending down in reliability, owner satisfaction, and long-term durability scores, that doesn't just hurt sales, it cuts off the lifeline that keeps the cash flowing. Less demand means heavier incentives. Heavier incentives mean thinner margins. Thinner margins mean less money for quality improvements, dealer support, and warranty coverage. And then the spiral starts. That's why a bad car trend isn't just a bad year. It's a signal that a brand is entering the danger zone. Now let's get one thing straight before we go further. When we say brink of bankruptcy, we're not saying every one of these brands is filing Chapter 11 tomorrow morning. That's not how this works. Brands don't just explode overnight. They decay. The bankruptcy headline is usually the final chapter, not the beginning. What Consumer Reports data can reveal is the pre-collapse indicators, the stuff that shows up years before the financial news starts screaming. Things like persistent bottom-tier reliability, rising warranty claims that crush profit, heavy discounting just to move inventory, shrinking dealer networks, and owner satisfaction trends that keep falling even when the brand throws money at the problem. History shows this pattern again and again. Brands fail quietly first and loudly later. So let's talk about the 9 brands Consumer Reports trends are essentially sounding the alarm on. And I'm going to explain why each one is vulnerable, what the danger signs look like, and what it could mean for you as a buyer. First up is Stellantis, specifically Chrysler, Dodge, and Jeep. And yes, this one is massive because it's not some tiny niche brand. Jeep alone is a household name in America. But that's exactly why the warning matters. When a giant starts wobbling, the fallout is huge. The reliability trends have been sliding downward across multiple nameplates, and quality complaints aren't isolated anymore, they're spread across the lineup. Owners report electronics issues, drivetrain problems, build quality inconsistencies, and expensive repairs that show up too early in the vehicle's life. And then there's the dealer side of the story, which is where things get ugly fast. Dealers are overloaded with unsold inventory, especially in certain models where pricing and reliability don't match the competition anymore. To move units, Stellantis has leaned hard into incentives, and incentives feel great to buyers, but they're poison to long-term stability because they erode margins. If you're constantly bribing customers to buy your product, you're admitting the product can't sell on its own strength. And once a company gets addicted to incentives, it's extremely hard to stop without sales collapsing. Next is Nissan, and this one is almost painful because Nissan has such a strong legacy in the US market. But the warning signs are stacking up. Nissan has struggled with long-term reliability perception, and even when some models improve, the damage to brand trust lingers. Consumer Reports survey patterns show declining owner satisfaction in key areas, and Nissan's lineup has been caught in a dangerous middle ground, aging platforms, inconsistent quality perception, and an EV rollout that hasn't captured the market the way buyers expected. And the biggest financial threat here is resale value. Nissan resale values in multiple segments are below competitors, and when resale drops, the whole machine breaks, Leases become expensive, lenders tighten up, and buyers start hesitating. Nissan has also historically relied on aggressive sales tactics and discounting to keep volume up, and that can keep the lights on in the short term, but it's not a strategy that builds long-term stability. Third is Mitsubishi, and Mitsubishi is a special case because it's not collapsing loudly, it's fading quietly. Extremely limited lineup, low visibility, low consumer confidence, and a market presence that feels almost like it's on autopilot. Consumer reports data and broader reliability perception don't position Mitsubishi as competitive enough to win buyers away from Toyota, Honda, Mazda, or even Hyundai and Kia in a meaningful way. The survival of Mitsubishi is heavily tied to alliance support, and that's a dangerous position because it means Mitsubishi isn't fully controlling its own destiny. If the alliance priorities shift, or if the US market becomes less strategic for them, Mitsubishi could shrink further or exit certain regions without much warning. For buyers, that's terrifying, because when brands shrink, dealer networks shrink, parts availability becomes slower, and resale value gets hammered. Fourth is Alfa Romeo, and this one is like watching a beautiful car brand fight for oxygen. Alfa makes cars people want to love. The styling is sharp, the driving feel is emotional, the badge feels special. But consumer reports, trends, and owner complaints consistently point to chronic reliability issues. And in the US, Alfa has a second problem that's even worse: tiny sales volume. When your sales volume is small, every problem hits harder. One bad year can be catastrophic. One recall wave can become financially crushing. And because Alfa vehicles are expensive to repair and parts, service can be inconvenient depending on region, owners report higher repair costs and more frustration. That combination, low volume plus reliability problems, is exactly the kind of pattern that puts a brand at exit risk in North America. Fifth is Maserati, and this might be one of the most brutal examples of resale value collapse on the market right now. Maserati is supposed to be exotic luxury, but consumer reports, reliability perception trends, and owner feedback aren't supporting the premium pricing. Luxury buyers are fleeing to German rivals because when you're paying luxury money, you expect reliability, software refinement, and dealer experience to match. Maserati has been hit hard by depreciation, and once depreciation becomes a brand identity, the business model starts breaking. Because luxury brands survive on margin, not volume. If buyers stop paying premium prices and start demanding huge discounts, the math stops working. And when the math stops working, brands start cutting corners, cutting dealer support, cutting investment, and the product gets worse. That's the doom loop. Sixth is Jaguar, and this one is honestly sad because Jaguar is one of the most iconic names in automotive history. But icons don't pay bills, sales do. Jaguar has been shrinking, and its reliability perception has been a long-term problem. Add in EV transition delays and uncertainty, and now Jaguar is in a position where it's losing relevance faster than competitors. When a brand fades in relevance, it's not just about sales, it's about mindshare. People stop considering it. Dealers stop investing in it. Service networks stop expanding. And then suddenly you're a buyer holding a car from a brand that's not dead, but also not fully alive in the market. That's the kind of situation that makes resale values collapse and makes ownership stressful. Seventh is Land Rover, and this is where consumer reports warnings hit like a hammer, because Land Rover has one of the worst reliability reputations in the industry, especially when it comes to electronics, air suspension, and long-term durability. Warranty costs become crushing in situations like this because premium vehicles are expensive to repair. And when warranty claims pile up, margins get squeezed hard. Here's the key problem. Land Rover relies on premium pricing, but premium pricing only works if buyers feel safe, and consumer reports owner complaints remain high. If premium pricing is no longer justified in the buyer's mind, demand collapses, and then the brand has to start discounting, which is the worst thing a premium brand can do long-term because it destroys exclusivity and residual values. Eighth is Volvo, and some people are going to be shocked by this one because Volvo has a strong reputation for safety and Scandinavian quality. But here's the issue. Volvo is in the middle of massive software and electrification growing pains. Consumer Reports trends have shown slipping reliability scores in certain areas, and EV investment pressure is extremely expensive. Volvo is spending heavily, and heavy spending is fine if margins stay strong and products dominate. But when margins tighten globally and the tech transition introduces more quality risk, the financial pressure rises. And the EV space is not forgiving. Buyers expect smooth software, reliable charging behavior, stable battery performance, and low defect rates. If a brand stumbles in this phase, it can lose buyer trust quickly. Ninth is Infiniti, and this one is like the textbook definition of an identity crisis. Infiniti has been shrinking its lineup, struggling with brand relevance, and Consumer Reports satisfaction trends and consumer perception have been falling. Dealers are struggling with foot traffic because luxury buyers have too many better defined options. BMW stands for performance. Lexus stands for reliability. Mercedes stands for prestige. Audi stands for tech and design. Infiniti has struggled to own a clear lane, and in the luxury market, being unclear is deadly. Add in a shrinking lineup and weak demand, and the dealer network becomes fragile. And when luxury dealers start losing confidence, they stop investing, then service quality drops, customer experience drops, and it accelerates the decline. Now when you step back and look at all 9 brands together, you start seeing the same pattern repeating like a warning siren. Over-reliance on incentives. Reliability problems killing loyalty. EV strategy either too slow to compete or too expensive to sustain. Dealer networks quietly shrinking. And the most important one, collapsing resale value pressure. Because once resale values start falling, everything gets worse. Leasing becomes harder. Financing becomes harder. Trade-ins become uglier. Buyers get scared. Sales drop. Incentives rise. And the spiral continues. And this is exactly why dealers are panicking right now. Because dealers aren't emotional, they're financial. They see the numbers before buyers do. Consumer Reports ratings affect trade-in values, lease pricing, and warranty risk. If a brand's vehicles start trending unreliable, dealers take hits in multiple directions at once. Trade-ins become dangerous because the dealer doesn't want to get stuck with a used car nobody trusts. Lease deals become harder because residual values fall. Warranty risk rises because the dealer knows those cars are coming back with problems, eating service capacity, and creating angry customers. So what do dealers do when they're cornered? They slash prices just to survive. They dump inventory. They stop ordering risky trims. They quietly exit franchises. And when you start seeing dealer pullouts and inventory dumping, that's when you know the brand isn't just having a bad year, it's entering a structural danger phase. And here's the part that most people don't understand. You don't have to care about corporate bankruptcy headlines for this to matter to you. Even if a brand doesn't go bankrupt, being on the brink is enough to destroy your ownership experience. Because the moment confidence drops, you pay the price through depreciation, service headaches, and resale pain. The real victim is the buyer who financed a car thinking it would hold value and then finds out the market doesn't trust that badge anymore. So now the big question becomes, what should you do if you're shopping right now? How do you protect yourself from being the person who buys into a collapsing resale trap? Because I'm going to show you the exact warning signs you can spot before you buy, the models that are the riskiest inside these brands, and the incentive bait tricks that make buyers think they're getting a deal, when in reality, they're buying into a financial sinking ship. Let's talk about those warning signs. Because if you can spot them early, you can save yourself thousands of dollars and years of frustration. And I'm not exaggerating. Most people only think about the sticker price and the monthly payment. But the real financial hit doesn't happen on day one. It happens later, when you try to sell it, trade it in, or even just keep it on the road. So if you're watching this video and you're currently shopping or you bought recently and you're nervous, pay attention to this part because this is where buyers either protect themselves or get absolutely crushed. The first warning sign is incentive desperation. This is when you see a brand offering deals that are way too aggressive compared to the rest of the market. We're talking about massive cash rebates, zero-down leases that look suspiciously cheap, or dealer ads screaming $10,000 off today. And look, discounts aren't automatically bad. But there's a difference between a normal promo and a brand basically begging customers to take inventory off their hands. Incentive desperation is like smoke coming out of the hood. It's not the problem itself, but it means something underneath is overheating. When brands are forced to discount heavily, it usually means demand is collapsing, and when demand collapses, resale values collapse right behind it. The second warning sign is dealer network shrinkage. Most buyers don't even think about this until it's too late. You can love a car, but if the brand has fewer dealers, fewer service centers, and fewer trained techs in your area, your ownership experience becomes a nightmare. It means longer wait times, higher labor rates, and fewer parts available. It also means when you go to trade in your car, dealers don't want it because they don't want to service it. A shrinking dealer network is basically the market saying, we don't believe this brand has a strong future. And once that belief spreads, it's very hard to reverse. The third warning sign is software chaos. This one is exploding across the entire industry, but it hits these 9 brands harder because they're already under pressure. If a brand has constant infotainment glitches, sensor failures, warning lights, random shutdowns, and endless updates that never fully fix the problem, that's not just annoying, it's expensive. Software issues cause repeat service visits, warranty claims, and angry owners. Consumer Reports surveys heavily reflect this because owners complain about what they live with every day. And when software issues become a brand reputation, buyers start avoiding the brand entirely. The fourth warning sign is resale value collapse in real time. You can literally see this happening if you pay attention to used listings. When a brand is in trouble, you'll see newer used models priced shockingly low compared to rivals. And at first, buyers think that's a bargain. But the truth is, it's not a bargain, it's a warning. The market is pricing in risk. It's saying, we don't trust this car to hold value. We don't trust repair costs. We don't trust long-term reliability. And once the used market starts discounting a brand aggressively, it becomes extremely difficult for that brand to sell new vehicles without even bigger incentives. That's the death spiral. Now here's where things get even more serious, because inside these 9 brands, there are certain models and segments that are the most exposed. And if you're a buyer, these are the ones that can financially ruin you if you get stuck at the wrong time. For example, with Stellantis, the biggest danger zone is anything that already has shaky reliability reputation plus high pricing. That's a deadly combo. When buyers stop trusting the quality, but the sticker price stays high, demand collapses overnight. And Stellantis has had a problem recently where pricing went up while perceived quality didn't. That creates a gap. And gaps get punished. Dealers then get stuck with inventory, and suddenly you see massive discounts on vehicles that were overpriced just months earlier. If you bought at peak pricing, you're underwater instantly. With Nissan, the danger is how quickly perception can crush resale value. Nissan can build a decent car, but the brand perception in certain segments drags everything down. And when resale value drops, Nissan becomes trapped in a cycle of needing incentives to compete. That means buyers who finance can get hammered on depreciation, especially if they don't put much down. And the worst part? Many buyers who shop Nissan are payment-focused, not value-focused, so they're more likely to get trapped in long-term negative equity. With Mitsubishi, the danger is support and market presence. Even if the car works fine, the risk is what happens if the brand shrinks further. Less dealer support means less resale confidence. Less resale confidence means you take the hit. And Mitsubishi is one of those brands where the entire US operation can feel thin, meaning one strategic change could reduce availability dramatically. With Alfa Romeo and Maserati, the danger is brutal depreciation plus repair costs. These brands can offer cars that feel special, but the market punishes them hard. A luxury buyer wants a car that feels premium and stays premium. But when a luxury badge becomes known for resale collapse, buyers stop paying premium prices. And then the used market turns into a bloodbath. This is why you'll see some of these cars lose value like they fell off a cliff. If you buy new, you're absorbing that hit. If you buy used, you might be okay, but only if you're prepared for higher service costs and parts issues. With Jaguar and Land Rover, the danger is reliability reputation. Because even if the brand survives, owners pay the price through repair costs and constant service visits. And as these brands push into new tech and electrification, the complexity rises, and complexity without bulletproof reliability becomes a nightmare. People love the look and feel of these vehicles, but the market punishes them because buyers fear long-term ownership. With Volvo, the danger is the transition phase. Volvo is investing heavily in electrification and software, but those transitions are expensive and risky. If reliability trends slip while costs rise, margins get squeezed. And when margins get squeezed, brands have to make tough choices, cut features, raise prices, reduce support, or delay improvements. Buyers can end up stuck in the middle of that transition, especially on first-generation tech. And with Infiniti, the danger is relevance. In luxury, relevance is survival. If a luxury brand loses identity and demand, it becomes harder to justify dealer investment, model development, and innovation. And when that happens, the lineup gets weaker, which makes the brand even less desirable. That's how luxury brands die, not with a bang, but with silence. Now I want to hit you with something that most people don't realize. Bankruptcy isn't the only disaster scenario. Sometimes the brand survives, but the buyer still loses. Because brands can restructure, cut support, cut dealer incentives, reduce warranties, discontinue models, and shift resources to other markets, and you're still holding the car. So even if there's no bankruptcy headline, the ownership risk becomes real. That's why smart buyers don't just ask, "Is this a good deal today?" They ask, "Will this car still be a good asset 2 or 3 years from now?" Because if the answer is no, you're not buying a car, you're buying a financial liability. So now let's get into the part that could save you the most money. How to buy safely if you still want one of these brands anyway. Because some of you watching are going to say, "I hear you, but I still love Jeep," or "I still want a Land Rover," or "I found a crazy deal on a Maserati." And that's fine. You can still buy smart, but you have to buy with a strategy, not emotions. The first rule is simple. Never buy new when depreciation is collapsing. If you're looking at a brand that's being propped up by incentives, buying new means you're the one absorbing the hit. The smarter play is buying lightly used, preferably after the biggest depreciation drop has already happened. That's how you flip the risk. Let someone else take the initial loss. The second rule, lease only if the lease is heavily subsidized and the warranty coverage is strong. Leasing can be a protective shield because you're not exposed to long-term depreciation risk if the lease terms are good. But here's the trap. If residual values are weak, leases can be expensive. So the only time leasing makes sense with these brands is when the manufacturer is basically paying to keep you in the vehicle. That's when you take advantage. But if the lease payment is high, you're just paying premium money for risky ownership. The third rule, get the longest warranty you can, but only if it's backed properly. Extended warranties can protect you, but only if the company and dealer network are stable enough to honor them smoothly. Some third-party warranties are nightmares. And if a brand is shrinking its dealer network, warranty work becomes harder to schedule. The fourth rule: watch dealer behavior like a hawk. If dealers are dumping inventory, refusing trade-ins, or acting desperate, that's a signal. Dealers know what's coming. If they don't want to hold these vehicles, you shouldn't either. And now, here comes the biggest truth of all. This entire story isn't just about bad cars. It's about financial survival in a market that is changing fast. EV investments, software complexity, rising repair costs, higher interest rates, and collapsing consumer patience are destroying brands that can't keep up. And Consumer Reports data is basically the early warning radar. So what happens next? Which of these brands are most likely to survive, and which are most likely to shrink, merge, or disappear from the US market entirely? Because if you're going to understand the next wave of the auto industry shake-up, you need to know which brands are at the edge and which ones still have a lifeline.